Alright, what is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. And today is going to be like more of an informative type of video. I'm going to give you guys some tips on losing weight, also known as cutting, where your main objective is essentially to maintain as much muscle mass as you can while losing as much body fat as you can. So there are a few main things I want to touch on. So my number one and my biggest tip for losing weight is going to be a caloric deficit. For those of you who do not know what that is, essentially it's eating less calories than your maintenance calories. The recommendation is to be losing about 1 to 2, but no more than 2 pounds a week in a caloric deficit. So that's going to be roughly, the recommended value is a caloric deficit of about 250 calories to 500 calories below your maintenance level. Now, finding your maintenance level is going to be step number one. This can be done through multiple equations you can find online. Also, before I start this video, I want to just give you my credentials, where I'm getting this information from. Yes, a lot of it is personal experience. Also, I have a biology degree and a nutrition minor, so I am familiar with a lot of these things. So the first things first, you need to find your resting metabolic rate. So you can do this. There's various methods. One of the most common methods is the Mifflin-St. Jeor approach, where you have an equation and you take your body weight in kilograms, you multiply that by a constant, you add it to all this other stuff, and you'll get a certain number of calories, okay? So that will give you your resting metabolic rate, or otherwise known as your RMR. Next, you will need to look up your physical activity factor, or your PA factor. This is usually a decimal, which you will multiply by your RMR to give you another number of calories, okay? So you want to keep those two numbers of calories in the back of your head. Like I said, look up the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation online. There's a bunch of calculators that you guys can try on your own. And I'm also going to try and link all my notes in the YouTube video at the end if I can. So once you have your RMR and your physical activity factor, if you wanted to get down to the nitty gritty of it, you could calculate your calories that you burn per minute for your exercise portion of this to find your maintenance, but we're not going to do that for this video. Next, you'll need to find your TEF, which is your thermic effect of food. So this is going to be your RMR plus your physical activity factor times 0.10, and that will give you a certain number of calories. So now we have three numbers we're working with, okay? So with those three numbers, what you're going to do is you're going to add them up. You're going to add up your RMR, which should be probably most likely going to be in the thousands, your physical activity factor, and then you're going to add up your thermic effect of food, because you do burn calories when you eat food, guys, if you didn't know that. So if you want to be as accurate as possible, try to include the most data as possible. But if you do not know those numbers, then just go off of the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. That's going to give you a rough estimate, and you can go from there. So once you add all those up, guys, that will give you your total daily caloric needs, or your weight maintenance needs, okay? The amount of calories you need to eat every single day in order to maintain your weight. If you want to test this, eat that number of calories for 5 to 7 days or a few weeks and see how your weight changes. If your weight goes up, then you know your maintenance calories is lower. You need to be eating less. So you can kind of experiment with, that way. To see how that goes. And yeah, so once your weight stays the same, then you know that number is your weight, the number of calories you need to eat to maintain your weight. Drop that by maybe 250 to 500 calories, and that's the amount of calories you'll need to eat in order to be in a caloric deficit. My second tip is probably going to be I think my second tip would be to incorporate some type of cardio or HIIT training into your day. And my last tip is going to be, when you're losing weight, you're going to hit a point where you're going to plateau and you're no longer going to lose weight, even though you're eating in a caloric deficit. So once you find your maintenance calories, you can figure out your macros. So my suggestion is to choose between 0.75 and 1.25 grams per pound of body weight, I think it is. If you're trying to obviously maintain as much muscle mass as you can, I would go towards the higher end of that range, and then fill in the rest with your carbs and fats. It's recommended that 35, and I think it's 35 to 55 or 45 to 55% of your diet should be carbs, and then you can fill in the fats and the rest of the carbs. That way you kind of manipulate them how you are. But once you diet for so many weeks and you hit a plateau, which you most likely will, where you're not losing weight anymore, you'll need to make adjustments, whether that be nutritional adjustments, exercise adjustments, whether you just do an extra 10 minutes on the Stairmaster, on the treadmill. You can do any types of adjustments. You can drop your carbs, drop your fats a little bit, those kind of things. So it is an experimental thing, especially if it's your first time, and especially if you don't know your body to a T. So yeah, those are my top 3 tips, guys. Find your weight maintenance calories, the caloric needs that you need in one day to maintain your weight. Experiment with that so you know it's accurate. Drop that to 250 to 500 calories to be in a deficit. And also, I think one of my biggest tips is to stay consistent and stay disciplined, because it takes time. It's not gonna be like in 3 weeks you're gonna look like a fucking specimen or something. It takes time. It takes months. You know, it takes months to, especially if you're trying to drop a lot of body fat. It's gonna take a while. So you need to stay disciplined. Eat in a caloric deficit, and make adjustments as needed as time goes. So those are like my top 3 tips for a beginner. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that quick little rundown of how to find your maintenance calories. Like I said, you can look up the equation online. I'm gonna try and link my notes in this video, but if not, that's my recommendation. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you in the next one.